Hello, everybody. We'll just wait a few more seconds while more people come into the room. Yeah, I think I see a lot of numbers here now, so I'm just going to start straight away. Hello, everybody. Dara Otuma is my name. I'm content manager with Code Institute, who we're going to talk about in a few moments. And you're all very welcome to the How to Change Careers webinar with EIMF and Code Institute themselves. Now, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown as to what we're going to actually discuss today. Of course, we're going to talk about changing careers in software development. We're going to give you an introduction as to who we are, who our guests are, and everything else like that. As well as that, we're going to talk about the digital skills gap. So many of you are here today because you're contemplating changing careers into software development. So we're going to paint a picture as to, I suppose, what the need is right now, what it looks like on the ground around Cyprus and surrounding areas, but as well as that on a European level itself. Of course, we're going to look at what you'd learn on a Code Institute EIMF program. What are the skills you're going to learn? What are you going to walk away with, etc. We'll talk about support structures that are in place that will help you through that. And then at the end as well, we go through some general questions and answers that will hopefully, I suppose, answer anything that you need about it. Now, we will have live chat running, so if you have any questions, please feel free to send them through and somebody will respond to you online. And as well as that, we'll be inviting you at the end of this to get in touch with EIMF themselves, but we'll get to that shortly through the program itself. Now, I would like to, I suppose, welcome into the room some amazing people who are with me. First off, I'd like to welcome into the room Jane Gormley, who is a Careers Director with Code Institute. Jane, you're very welcome into the room. Let's check your camera. Mike, how are you?
Hey, good morning. Yeah, wonderful. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, Jane. I'm not complaining, which is always a good thing. I would also like to welcome into the room Sophie Kyriakou, who is Business Development Manager of the European Institute of Management, or EIMF, that I keep referring to. Sophie, you're welcome into the room. And
Thank you very much.
I really hope I said your surname right this time.
It's correct, absolutely. Hi, Dara, and hi, Jane, and hi to everybody that's listening to us.
And thank you very much, Sophie. And finally, I'd like to welcome into the room Pablo Haralambidis, who is Managing Director of MG or Human Resources Limited, which are one of the biggest tech recruiters in Cyprus. Very excited to have you in. Pablo, how are you today?
Very well, Dara. Pleased to be with you, and thanks for the invitation for today's session. Hi, Jane. Hi, Sophie. Pleased to be with you.
Folks, I'm so happy to have you all in the room because I suppose you guys are the experts behind the topics that we're going to be talking about today. Once again, I want to remind you that the wonderful people who are watching us right now, they're interested in changing career to software development. We want to have a look at, well, whether or not there are opportunities there, but well as that, what type of skills are needed, etc., etc., etc. Okay, I suppose I'm going to start off, folks, with a little bit about Code Institute. Then we'll look at what EIMF does, and then, of course, MG or Human Resources as well. So I'll move on to the next slide here. So Code Institute were founded back in 2015. And the whole idea behind what we do is we saw this massive global skills gap. Okay, so what's a skills gap? Effectively, when business needs a certain skill, the skills gap is when there's not enough of those skills available. That's plain and simple. And with the rise of technology over, let's say, the last 20 years, it's been incredible. It's been incredibly fast, etc. However, the workforce hasn't kept up. There aren't enough software developers, there aren't enough people with technological skills to actually advance that forward. And the thing with tech is it's changing all the time. Now, I mentioned over the last 20 years, the speed in which technology is changing, but over the last two or 3 years during this pandemic, it went even faster still, and the skills gap widened even further. So the aim of Code Institute is to actually close that digital skills gap. Now, what do? We're what you call a global education advisor. And what I mean by the word global is we were founded in Ireland. However, we are now operating all over the world with staff all over the world. We cover many time zones and our students from everywhere in the world as well. The Code Institute program, the one that you're going to learn about today, it's the only university credit rated online coding bootcamp in Europe. We have our university credit rating from University of West of Scotland. And it's really, really good to have that because when you approach employers, it's great to be able to say that you have a certified diploma at an academic level. Now you see the words IAC or industry-led in the third box just below us here. Okay, what that means is when we decided to put our program together, we didn't just want to teach software development. We want to teach software development that's in demand. So if you've done a bit of research around coding, you've probably heard about different languages like C#, you've heard about Perl, you've heard about Python, Java, all these different things. What we did is we went out to industry, we asked what's in demand right now, what coding languages are in demand? And the companies came back to us and said things like JavaScript, Python, of course, HTML, CSS, and other things like that. And effectively, these are things that run the web right now. If you watch Netflix in the evening, you're looking at brilliant lines of Python that are enabling that streaming to you. And JavaScript's what enables you to pay for that and all these other things. So they're incredibly important, especially to the business world right now. Career focus. So I've invited Jane into the room today. Jane is our careers director, and Pablo will know so much about this in the Cyprus area, as will Sophie as well. Many of you are here because you're considering changing career. Our program is there to help you actually do that. We don't just focus on what you learn, we focus on helping you change career into software development itself. Now, portfolio-led training, my personal favorite on this page, okay? I'm a panicky person. You may not have noticed that straight away, but when it comes to exams, I can't cope. Good news is, on Code Institute's program, you will not do exams. You create a portfolio. So while you're doing our program, which is 100% online, which takes a maximum of 52 weeks, you will be building 5 major projects, okay? And that builds your portfolio. Now, what are the advantages of that? Okay, you get graded on that portfolio. The advantages are when you go out looking for a career in software development, you have an actual portfolio in lieu of experience, and that's incredibly important. Okay, enough talking for me. Sophie, EIMF, who are you and what do you do?
Thank you very much, Dara. Well, as you can see, we've also been around for some years, founded in 2014. So we bring much expertise, experience, both in education and also of the needs of the business community here, which of course we work very closely with. In a nutshell, we help people to develop themselves professionally as well as personally, so as to be ready to join the job market, or for those who are often already in the working environment, to further their careers or to learn new skills for changing career paths, which actually is something that over the last years we see more and more of. So that's a good point to take away. As an accredited and licensed education group, we offer learning and development opportunities that include enhancing know-how, learning new knowledge and skills, as well as opportunities to attain global professional qualifications. These cover an array of learning areas as well as across industries. And of course, this also includes the tech sector, which, as has already been mentioned, is in fact growing faster than most other industries. And of course, here in Cyprus is no exception. Of course, this is a great thing as it creates new jobs. At the same time, there is a skill gap, as Dara had mentioned earlier, for which people will need to acquire new sets of skills. The EIMF team, all I can say is that we have a great passion for learning. We work with a pool of professionals to ensure that we offer the highest quality of learning. We use the very latest methodology, and knowledge and practical skills are delivered by established subject matter experts. This is done through various channels, including classroom, e-learning, and of course, live online. And of course, since COVID, for sure, the online and the e-learning have become the more preferred, shall I say, methods of learning. We'll see if we'll get back to our classrooms eventually. So we pride ourselves in excellence, in choice, in flexibility, in everything that we do. And that's a great point for us, I think. We are based in Cyprus, and as you know, and also have operations in London, in Athens, in Dublin, and we also have a very strong presence in other major business cities, such as Frankfurt, Copenhagen, Sofia, Tel Aviv, just to mention a few of those. Now, in terms of numbers, just to get a picture of what we do and who we are, we train over 5,000 students every year. Offer well over 330 different programs, have more than 60 instructors, offer around 25 international certifications, and we have partnerships with some of the most recognized professional associations and bodies from around the world. So likewise, we were very thrilled to join forces with Code Institute, to answer your question, Dara. And since we are very dedicated to offering new learning opportunities, our collaboration allows for great prospects to the market in an area that we really consider a must for the future. And it's great that the offerings may benefit both those who are starting careers in software development, but also for those that are looking to make that change in their careers. So yes, we are excited to be able to join with the Code Institute team and basically together to help build job-ready developers who will be able to move straight into the job market.
Amazing, amazing. Sophie, thank you so much for that. Pablo, you've been very quiet.
Yep.
You guys, I suppose, in Cyprus are very well known for what you do in terms of human resource management and as well as that recruitment and things like that as well. Could you tell us a bit about MGR, please?
Yeah, sure. Well, MGR Human Resources, again, is a company which was established a few years ago. We've managed in a very short time frame to grow our operations to quite significant turnover and revenues and the type of projects that we undertake. We'd like to think of ourselves as a boutique HR consulting practice. We do not boast that we do everything, but what we try to do is the things that we undertake, the kind of services that we wish to offer, we make sure that we are one of the best in that respect. So MGR is a member of Mapes Pladis group of companies. And, Mapes Pladis is one of the leaders in the region, not just in Cyprus, in financial services advisory. So other than our broad consulting practice services, we are a licensed recruitment agency. We've tackled more than 600 placements in the last few years to date, a lot of them in the technology field. And we are also one of the very few licensed temporary placements agencies. So we are one of 4 companies in Cyprus at the moment who are licensed by the government to offer temp placement services. We have offices in Nicosia, Limassol, and Malta, and we also support our group's UK operations. These are the main areas where we focus and offer services. We have a team of 11 HR consultants. They've been dealing with advisory work, but we also, interestingly enough, employ another 120 qualified professionals whom we second to clients as part of short-term placement projects and HR outsourcing projects. In that respect, I think it's fair to say that we are managing the largest HR project in Cyprus and in Malta at the moment. It's multi-million euro engagement. So in a nutshell, what we do very well executive recruitment services, so talent search, identification, and evaluation. We do short-term and fixed-term placements as per clients' needs. We do HR function outsourcing. So what do? We undertake specific HR functions and operate as a third organization's internal HR function. One of our flagship services is the diagnostic health check, the HR audit, we call it. So we basically determine the as is and the to be state and everything in between achieving that. We are very good at managing individual performance systems and measuring management effectiveness as well as well as assessing and enhancing corporate culture and assessing people's engagement levels. And finally, we are an approved Investors in People's partner. We are practitioners, and we do Investors in People implementation and accreditation. So that's in a nutshell about MGR. We don't do everything, but we make sure that the kind of services we offer, we are distinctive in those, and we are recognized.
Pablo, thank you so much for that. Okay, so folks, effectively what we're trying to say here is the people who I'm talking to today, and I'm blessed to be talking to them, the people I'm talking to today understand what it's like on the ground in Cyprus and surrounding areas in terms of changing career in software development, the needs in terms of software development, etc. Jane Gormley, once again, you've also been very quiet today. Jane, okay, so we've mentioned this term, digital skills gap, quite a few times so far, okay? And one thing I feel I really need to say as well, look, folks, if you're concerned as to how many jobs are out there in the tech sector, okay, technology is one of the only, I suppose, roles as such that I have seen where digital policies are now put in place for nearly every government in the world, right? That's how bad the skills gap is right now. It's now turned into government policy. Jane, could you paint for us a picture as to what it's like globally or throughout Europe in terms of, I suppose, this digital skills that are needed right now?
Yeah, of course. And so, look, I suppose anecdotally, everyone has a certain level of awareness of this digital skills gap, but it's really nice to look at the very official sort of information, and just like you referenced there, Dara, that there's there are global government-led policies to sort of address this on a very formal basis. So we rely very heavily on data that comes from the World Economic Forum. They would regularly issue various reports on different subjects, and what we look at is the Future of Jobs report. So a really comprehensive deep dive on a global basis as to where we sit and what kind of training needs to be provided and what skills we need to acquire. And this is not something to be fearful of. It's kind of about future-proofing yourself and future-proofing industries. So what the numbers that we see here are quite staggering. So if we look at the bottom blue semicircle, 85 million jobs are in the process of being displaced, which means the fundamental skills required to do them are changing. And the type of just to kind of how these roles are going to be executed is going to change. And by 2025, which obviously is very, very soon, there will be 97 million new tech jobs with the potential of being created. So, this is not bad news. This is just a period of change. And massive potential for us all. So really what needs to happen in between that is that, certainly obviously from a government perspective, is that we need to make sure people have access to training and that they're being made aware of this, and that we're ready so that we can avail of the opportunities that this presents to us. So that's kind of where we're sitting right now. So yeah, we absolutely have a huge shortage in tech, in the digital space. And without going too deep into it, what I'd love for people to understand is that these roles don't just sit in, like the core engineering teams. We have people who are working in client-facing roles who will just have a digital component to their role. We have people in, financial roles, marketing roles who require software development skills and will really benefit their career and themselves by learning them.
Jane, one thing I will say, and it's such a cliche, and Pablo and Sophie, I don't know if you agree with me here, but and I'm sorry about the cliche, okay? Every industry is now the tech industry, okay? There's been this kind of myth, I won't call it a myth because once upon a time it was true, but there was this, I suppose, thought process that tech was only required within the tech industry. But we're at the stage in life now where even if you own a local shop, you need an online presence, or you will run technology to get your payments or whatever it is. The tech industry is now every single industry in the world. And Jane, you mentioned there, you were talking about, I suppose, the 85 million jobs displaced, and you were saying it's not necessarily that, you said it's a change as opposed to something drastic or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The perfect example is, I don't know if any of you are as old as me or whatever it is, but I remember a time, not so long ago, let's say 25 years ago, if I wanted to fly to Cyprus tomorrow, I'd make a phone call to my travel agent. And I'd say, hi, how are you? I'd like to go to Cyprus tomorrow. Now what do? I pick up my phone. I go to Ryanair or Aer Lingus or whoever it is. Click, click, click. There you go. I'm through. I will see you tomorrow in Cyprus. So the world is changing. And over the last couple of years, we actually saw more of a need for that than ever before, because around the globe, businesses had to shut their doors, but businesses also had to keep employing people and I suppose taking over and making money, etc. And they all looked at the technology and said, well, we need to improve. We need to be able to survive. If this ever happens again, we need to keep our doors open, etc., etc., etc. And it kept changing. Sophie, I'm going to bring you in. So Jane talked about, I suppose, the need for more digital skills on the ground. In your opinion, is it mirrored in Cyprus itself? You're on mute. That's one of the classic lines of COVID-19. You're on mute. Yes.
Apologies for that. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Apologies. Yeah, absolutely agree with that there is no different here in Cyprus. I absolutely agree with the points raised by both Jane and Dara. And especially since COVID, we're seeing that clients are more than ever looking for tech people. Everything from the smallest thing to the largest now requires the tech side, as Dara mentioned before. So whether it's the smallest of businesses or the largest of businesses, we need them. And something very important also to note, mentioned by Jane, is the fact that tech does not mean necessarily that you're doing the what used to be the tech job. It can be a frontline job, it can be marketing, it can be many other things. And I think that's very important for people to realize, because often people, when they think of tech jobs, they have a specific kind of picture that springs to mind. That picture, I think, is something of the past, and tech is part of our jobs, out of everybody's jobs, and it can be used effectively. And the need to know how to do things is a definite plus.
Thank you for that, Sophie. Pablo, I'm going to bring you in one moment. Just based on something Sophie said there, I'm going to go back to Jane for a moment. So, Sophie, kind of what you've emphasized what Jane said regarding it's no longer that stereotypical, the coder in the corner who's
absolutely
doing this. And that coder, by the way, stereotypically in the past would have been male, curly hair, glasses, sitting in a dark room doing this, that, the other. Okay, let's get this out of the way straight away. Somebody who has coding knowledge now is male, female, non-binary, whatever it is. They're old, they're young, they're any skin type in the world. It doesn't matter. Everyone can be a coder. You do have to learn these skills, but it's no longer that stereotype. Well put there, Sophie, right? So Jane, you mentioned this, and I just want to touch on it a little bit further, because again, this is your role within Code Institute. You help people, I suppose, land that career in software development. And Pablo, I know you guys are doing the same thing, so I have a question for you directly after this. How important are transferable skills? Because I know for a lot of career changers, let's take, for example, a hairdresser who could be sitting here watching this right now. They're going, okay, yeah, I'd like to be a software developer, but I have absolutely no skills. Are there transferable skills? And we're only taking hairdressing as an example, okay? Are there transferable skills for somebody who, like a hairdresser, would deal with the public on a regular basis? They would deal with cash intake, outgoing, things like that as well. How important are transferable skills to non-technological people who are changing career?
Yeah. Well, look, in a recruitment process, there's a number of things that always get looked at. And my strongest advice, and I can kind of give a couple of insights to this, would be one of the core reasons for the supports here is to help you prepare really well, so that, well in advance of going to you're sitting in a recruitment chair, that you know how to talk about yourself, you know how to articulate yourself to a technical audience, and you understand how to explain to people what it is that you've maybe done to date. So even if it hasn't been a technical role, those softer skills are crucially important when it comes to getting hired. The obviously being able to code is what we're training people, but when you're executing those skills in your new career, you're still going to be communicating, you're still going to be involved in projects, you're still going to be working with teammates, you may be working remotely or hybrid or whatever it is. You can learn those remote based sort of project management skills. There's a huge amount on a day-to-day basis that people try to assess in recruitment so that they know what it's going to be like to work with you. And one of those skills is a tech skill, but the rest of it is obviously, maybe less tangible insofar will come under the kind of softer skill brackets. When we work with career changers, which is the lion's share of the people who are moving through this program, they have a really unique advantage in that they are typically experienced in something. They've broken the back of being an employee. They know how to behave within the workplace. They can maybe in a more emotionally mature way than someone who has never worked before can sort of absorb skills and apply value really quickly. And this is something that really stands out with our coders. And your example there, it's funny, like just to reference back the point that we made before, that tech is not separate to industry. A huge amount of tech hiring, tech employers that we're working with, their technical product is specialized in a certain industry. So to take a hairdresser, for example, like we work with a tech hiring partner whose product is exclusively sold into salons. And so their end user is a hairdresser, is a beautician, is, a business owner in this field. So they are snapping up our career changers from that industry who can now code and can apply enormous value. So getting a little bit of advice and help along the way is going to speed this up, but a career changer has a really unique scenario.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jane. Pablo, before I have an actual written question here for you, but I'm going off script. Okay. So this is your field. Based on what Jane said there, what are your own thoughts on kind of transferable skills? So once again, many of the people in this room are contemplating changing from one industry or one career into another, which I suppose you work in this market, Pablo, you realize that can be quite a jump for people. Well, I suppose, what can you tell them about transferable skills?
Dara, I'm actually one of the champions of this concept. Recruiters on occasion will reject people, or employers will reject people who do not have the relevant experience from one field to another. However, I sincerely believe that transferable skills are becoming more and more important nowadays, and employers are starting to recognize that such transferable skills can be of very good use for their own organization. Of course, having said that, I think that this is important for people to, in addition to the transferable skills that they may possess, it's important to upskill and to reskill as well. So making use of their transferable skills, they can upskill and they can acquire certain new skills. And I think this is exactly what we are talking about today. So there are certain transferable skills that involve softer skills, communication, presentation, or any other skills which are front-facing. And then you've got back-end transferable skills. So, I think, it should become the norm going forward that employers recognize more and more these transferable skills from one area to another.
Okay, I'm going to jump back on script now, Pablo. Okay, so once again, you have your finger on the pulse in Cyprus, surrounding areas, etc. Okay, so you guys know, right? What can you tell us about new opportunities that are out there, I suppose, for new programs?
I think nobody doubts that digital transformation is a key priority for every single organization in Cyprus. And I'm talking about Cyprus now. So this has resulted in programming and software development being one of the most sought after career paths currently in Cyprus. If we were to talk from a statistical perspective, at any given time, there are something like 2,000 available jobs at any given moment. considering the Cyprus labor market size, this is not insignificant. This is quite significant. Further, according to the European Commission statistics, there's something like 5.5 million developers in Europe at the moment. That was back in 2020. While at the same time, there was a shortage for 500,000 or 1 million more. So we expect the need for programmers, developers to continue increasing steadily over the coming years. So some of the most popular positions, and there are a lot that need to be filled in by companies on a daily basis, is of course software developer and software engineer. And there is a distinction between the two. So you've got a need for machine learning, AI, artificial intelligence engineers. You've got needs for information security analysts, for Angular developers, for data analysts, for full stack developers, computer system analysts, database administrators, and something very, very hot at the moment is what we call DevOps engineers.
Incredibly hot at the moment. I have to say, but all of those that you mentioned there, I mean, data analysts, full stack developers, cybersecurity, you mentioned information security analysts. I suppose that's a big business right now, and it's in huge demand. Machine learning, AI engineers. Pablo, it's just to say, it's mirrored exactly where I'm sitting. It's mirrored exactly in the UK. It's mirrored exactly in Germany. It's the same in Sweden. It's everywhere else as well. And it just shows you that the global picture is very similar in this sphere. Jane, let's talk specifically, and we'll be brief on this one, about new developers. Okay, so once again, and I'm sorry, folks, if it sounds like I'm repeating myself, but many of you are here today watching this because you're contemplating changing careers to software development. What about the demand, Jane? This in your experience working with Code Institute and helping career changers land a role in software development itself. Mm-hmm. What about those with less experience in new to code? Is there a demand for them?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, companies are intaking and hiring all the time. Like we have in excess of about 1,500 companies who are just within like our formal network. Never mind the incredible infinite amount of ones outside of that. So we help people obviously have an immediate access to a network because coming from outside tech, you're unlikely to have that. But yeah, the world is your oyster, but it takes a certain amount of planning. Like we run recruitment events every single week, and we're posting new roles every single day. Just from within that kind of closed community. So yeah, there's a huge demand. Just if anyone's kind of starting to research this, try and get a bit familiar. Obviously, there's a certain amount of evidence of it on the jobs boards. A small caveat I would mention is that the jobs boards, they sort of they sort of dominate the kind of hiring narrative. They've sort of acquired that as their own, but they're wonderful, but they perform best at that kind of mid-range role. So, just be aware there's a huge amount of recruitment. 70% of roles never get advertised because they're hired through networks, people like us who have contacts and arrangements and insights. So you can feel really confident that this is a really, really solid industry or space.
So based on that, Jane, I'll be telling everyone to contact you and Pablo directly after this meeting.
Well, I'm sure Pablo knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly. I resonate.
Folks, I will get to some of what you'll actually learn in the program in a moment. But Sophie, I suppose briefly again, and apologies, I'm putting a little bit of a rush on this at this stage because I am keeping you very long today. So my apologies. But Sophie, from what Jane said there and new developers, can I make an assumption that EIMF see what Jane spoke about as well, by virtue of the fact that you Code Institute and you are now partners in this particular field at the moment? I mean, what Jane said, is that mirrored in your view in terms of, the need for new developers to come through?
Yeah, I think absolutely, Dara. I think that demand is such that irrelevant of experience, those that are learning the new skills, that have the right skills, are highly sought after. And to also say that likewise, we also get requests. So I will agree with Jane that, many jobs are not advertised. And for us, because we work very closely with HR people, with directors of organizations, and they often will come to us directly to ask, do we know, are we aware, because they're looking for such people. So for sure.
Fantastic. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call the hidden jobs market. Very important, and as Jane and I suppose everyone has alluded to, it's very large as well. Okay, we're going to move on to, I suppose, languages now, and I'm not yet going to talk about what we teach, but Pablo, once again, you've the finger on the pulse, and I'm sure you've helped people get that role in tech, whether they're senior developers or junior developers or whatever it is. But I'm sorry for how kind of broad this question is, but what languages are hot right now in Cyprus?
Right. So, you've already mentioned, Dara, that there are several new programming languages and frameworks on the rise early on in our discussion. So what are the best programming languages as we speak? There's an endless list, but there's obviously a few that stand out. So programming and software development communities, they are evolving at such a faster rate than ever before. If someone is considering upping their skills and shifting into this, highly sought after domain, they should probably consider some of the following. I'll split them into two, actually. So you've got front-end programming languages, which is JavaScript. We've already mentioned that. HTML, CSS, React, and AngularJS. I think these are the most hot at the moment. If we were to talk about back-end programming languages, we would definitely have to talk about Python, SQL, C#, Java, and PHP. I would say that, these 10 programming languages together constitute the most important ones as we speak.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you a question that I'm never comfortable with asking, okay? But I'm not asking you to tell me your own personal details, okay? I know that, I suppose, salaries aren't overly discussed among Cypriots, for example, and the same can be said about so many other regions as well. In fact, for some reason, we're all quite shy to talk about, how much money we earn, etc. But could you give me an idea, once again, in your experience as somebody who works within recruitment, etc., what type of salaries are on offer for new developers?
I'm quite comfortable to actually answer that question, Dara, because we've got data on that, many years of data. So, salaries will typically vary across the board, but overall, when compared to the broader labor market, they're quite competitive and they are attractive for Cyprus standards. So, when I'm talking about Cyprus standards, obviously, I am talking about living expenses, cost of living, and that kind of thing in comparison to what kind of salary levels we have or we're looking at. So some of the factors which contribute to the variance in salaries are obviously industry, seniority, location of work. So from town to town, the levels differ. A person working as a developer, programmer in Cyprus, and let's say they have acquired 3-4 years of experience, they would typically earn on average anything between 1,800 and 2,000 euros per month. Now, salary ranges from 1,200 for young graduates, which is a very decent salary for a young graduate in Cyprus, and they can go up to 3,000 euros for a person with 7 to 10 years of experience. It is also important to note that salaries can go as high as 4,000 euros per month for considerably experienced people, developers, who possess the skills in demand. And if we are talking about managerial positions, then you're looking at higher packages as well.
Okay. And once again, while the numbers may differ from region to region, country to country, software development, coding, technology constantly appears in the upper ends of salary scales, which is, I suppose, it's something that's very enticing. And once again, it's reflective of the need for people with these skills. I'm nearly ready to move off this slide. I have 3 more questions. Okay. Jane, how should somebody approach upskilling for software development, do you feel?
How do they approach upskilling?
Yeah, as in, okay, so they've made the decisions, like I want to change career, and that's it, they've stopped. How do they approach it after that?
Yeah. So the first thing is try your best to find someone in your network to, who has experience, who maybe is working as a developer, works in tech, meet them for a coffee and have a chat and just get a sense of whether or not this appeals to you. Do an online challenge. We obviously have one. It's our 5-day coding challenge. Try out coding. If this is literally brand new to you, try it out. See, do you like it? You got to be excited about this. You have to enjoy it and have an aptitude for it. And if those 2 boxes are ticked, just do a little bit of homework and research and make a plan. Be mature and grown up about how much time you've got available to train, how quickly you want this to happen, and use the supports that are available to you through your training provider. It's
fantastic,
a big
Jane.
part of it. Yeah.
And I'll actually talk about support shortly. And one thing I do want to mention again, once again, folks, this is a 100% online program in which you have 52 weeks to do it. Okay. And Jane mentioned time there. It's an incredibly important point. To get through this program in 52 weeks, you're required to spend, let's say, between 12 and 15 hours per week on it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And many of the students who complete the Code Institute program are full-time workers. Many are part-time workers, and as well as that, we also have many people who are unemployed doing the actual program itself. Thing is, you need to dedicate time. Stick to your schedule. The rewards at the end of it are amazing. Sophie, so EIMF, you've helped thousands. I think you mentioned earlier on as many as 5,000 plus actually upscale and make this journey. Do you recommend it?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, those of us that have worked in learning and development for many, many years, we've seen that everybody, whatever the case, needs to be developing and improving their skills. And that's even more evident now with the fast movement of the tech industry. Somebody mentioned already before how in the last few years we've seen this great leap. So what does that mean? We have to upskill. We have to learn new things. If we want to stay competitive, we want to keep our jobs, go to new jobs, change our careers. So absolutely, yes, on that, Dara.
Fantastic. Okay, folks, we're going to move on to kind of the technical, well, I suppose to what you learn now in a moment. But before I do that, okay, so if you're interested in upskilling, and if you're interested in upskilling with EIMF and Code Institute, what I'll ask you to do, take note of this and please stay on the webinar, okay? If you want to find out more, you can speak to an EIMF advisor, okay? So if you go to eimf.eu, the course landing page, at the bottom of that, you can book in a call with an advisor, okay? Your other option is to go to or send an email to info@eimf.eu. So remember, if you want to speak with an advisor, eimf.eu, towards the bottom of the webpage, you'll see EIMF advisor. It's a yellow box. Fill in your details, and somebody will contact you within 24 hours of making the call itself. Okay, I've mentioned a few times time. Okay, so I've spoken too much. You guys have done a perfect job. I have this habit of rabbiting on like I'm doing right now. So I'm going to give everybody a brief, I suppose, description as to what you'll learn on the program. Now, if some of what I'm about to mention is new to you, Pablo has already mentioned some of this, and I'm delighted because it coincides nicely with what we actually teach. But I'm going to talk a little bit later on about a thing called the 5-day coding challenge. It's completely free of charge. Jane mentioned it earlier as well. It'll give you a taster as to what your learning journey will be like. Now, granted, it'll be a lot easier than doing a full stack course. However, we're going to give you a way in which you can learn some of the basics of software development for free. After just 1 hour a day over 5 days, you'll have built an actual web page. So we'll get to that soon. Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief overview now as to what you're going to learn on the program itself. And if you want more in depth, schedule that call with EIMF. Get in touch with them, ask an advisor to talk to you, and they'll talk you through everything that you're going to learn on the program itself. Okay, so on the screen here, you'll see Coding Essentials, Full Stack Toolkit, eCommerce, and then after that, you will see, I suppose, the Full Stack Diploma itself. Okay, so on our program, you do 5 major projects. I mentioned this earlier on. This is your portfolio. When you go out looking for work, or when you talk to recruiting companies like MGR or to Jane, your career advisor, whatever it is, you're going to need something that shows how skilled you are. It shows where you're strong, it shows what your design is like, etc. So that's why we do these 5 major projects, okay? So the coding essentials are the, I suppose, the absolute basics, the what you need to know if you want to be a software developer. And it all starts with those 4 letters, HTML. Okay, so imagine a human body. HTML is effectively, it's like the skeleton, okay? It's what everything sits on. HTML sets up the being. It sets up any web page, any app, etc. Okay. When you start off, you're going to learn HTML. Then you're going to learn what's called CSS, or cascading style sheets. So, as I said, HTML is that skeleton. CSS, I suppose, is the style on that. It's my lovely navy blue top. It's the glasses that I'm not wearing right now. It's whatever it is. It's that style. It's that color. It's everything else like that. It's whether or not you're going to be a talent. Okay, so your first project is going to be based on that. And as I said before, you build, for example, a basic web page. It could be a CV web page, whatever it is, okay? But that's to get to grips with those really important basics. HTML, CSS. I don't think there's a single web page without those, okay? That's just the way it is. Then you're going to move on to JavaScript, okay? So I talked about your skin color, your clothes. I talked about the skeleton itself. JavaScript is like what allows you to make a handshake or wink at somebody or do whatever it is. When it comes to code, it brings that code alive, and it's absolutely amazing. So your next project is going to bring in your HTML, it's going to bring in your CSS, but then it's going to bring in JavaScript. Now, I do want to mention, okay, you can do study on this, do your due diligence, okay? Find out how popular JavaScript is, and you'll find out that it's probably the most in-demand coding skill in the world. Okay, if a company wants to receive payments off a website in e-commerce, okay, what they'll need is JavaScript to actually allow that to happen, which is fantastic. Then project 3 is where we bring Python into it. Now, Python is not a snake. In fact, it is named after Monty Python, funny enough, but it's not the snake that we're thinking about. Okay, Python is the most amazing language in the world. Okay, there's 2 major languages at the moment, apart from JavaScript. There's Python and Java. Okay, and both of them are amazing. However, Java is slightly harder to learn because it's got a longer syntax. Okay. Python replicates the English language. Now, the reason why it's so popular and the reason why we chose it, I mentioned earlier on the Industry Advisory Council, or IAC. So when we went out and spoke to business and asked them what's in demand, and they said Python for various reasons. It's simpler, therefore you can get what you need built faster, which is fantastic. But we now live in a world, and another cliche, yes, I'm the king of cliches today, data is now more valuable than gold. Python is an amazing thing for managing that, and every website needs that. So as I mentioned earlier on, the likes of Netflix, Spotify, streaming services, they all rely on Python, and it is, I suppose, up there with JavaScript. And once again, do your research on this. You see JavaScript and Python are probably the most popular languages in the world right now. Okay, so they're your first 3 projects. Your next project is going to be the full stack toolkit. Okay, so you're going to take everything you've learned and you're going to make this amazing full stack project itself. By that stage, you are technically, after project 4, you are technically a full stack developer. Congratulations. That means you have what Pablo mentioned earlier on, skills in front end, back end, but as well as that, you've also got database because you know so much about Python. That's amazing. Okay, so we're going to bring you a step further. Okay, e-commerce at the moment is in huge demand. So once again, let's go back to the last 3 years, but present day as well, and let's say 10 years before that. So many people are now buying online. E-commerce is king. E-commerce is huge. This program will allow you to do a specialization within e-commerce itself. So it's going to give you that extra armory that you need when you go out to employers. And it's going to teach you more about what you're going to use in terms of selling products online. I'm not talking about becoming a salesperson. I'm talking about the technology that allows company to do that. Now, throughout this course, you're going to learn things like, and this, once again, may be new to you, but you're going to learn about jQuery. You're going to learn about APIs. So, for example, if you want to bring a map into your website from Google or something like that, that's called an API. Okay, you're going to use that. You're going to use SQL, mentioned by Pablo earlier on. You're also going to use Django, MongoDB. You're going to learn to work with payment technologies, etc. Anyway, when you finish these 5 projects, you will graduate successfully. You're going to work really hard while you do all this, by the way, and you will receive that university credit-rated diploma, full stack software development. Oh, I've done a lot of talking there. Okay, Jane, I'm going to bring you back in. Could you give us a rundown as to how you support students with career services themselves?
Yeah, of course. And I'll keep this kind of quick. So first of all, just to be really mindful that the career supports kick in from day one. So as soon as you're registered at Code Institute, you will have really regular access to the careers team. We're really present. We're really accessible. So we do two things. One, we run a kind of a career accelerator program. So you get, in addition to your technical training, you also can access career coaching. We do it live. We do it on a one-to-one basis, and we do it on a group basis. So there's a really strong community element to this. So from day one, you'll start attending our events. They're really flexible. They're run every single week. And then you also have access to them on demand. So in the same way that it's very flexible, dependent on your own time and availability and hours that you're here with us, you'll be able to, you'll have full access to this. And then, so we prepare you all the way through the course for recruitment. And when you're ready to start recruiting, there's obviously the introductions will be made at that point. So, you have a certain amount of control over how quickly this happens. That 90% statistic that's there is a data point that we pick up at the six-month mark post-graduation, but a very high proportion of our students are working in the tech industry before they've graduated. It's a very individual sort of scenario, and you'll have one-on-one guidance and advice on that too. What I will say to you is those 90%, there's a big correlation between the students who do dedicate little and often a bit of time to this, so that they're not putting a lot of pressure on themselves overnight to try and do extraordinary things. Just take your time, get comfortable with this, and just come and avail of the network that's here for you. I suppose that's the best advice I can give.
Amazing, Jane. Thank you so much for that. Now, I'm going to run through the other supports because, once again, I am keeping everyone too late, so my apologies. Okay, so I've mentioned already, you're not going to start this program and think that it's going to be easy. I'm going to be straight up with you. You're going to have to work hard, and it's one of these great sayings in my school. So I think I mentioned to Pablo and Sophie earlier on, I'm an Irish language speaker, okay? So my school crest used to be Tada gan Iirecht, nothing without effort, okay? And it's something I've kind of lived by, and if you want something, you've got to work at it. Now, I'm not going to tell you that learning to code is impossible. It's not. So many people are doing it, and we're going to talk about the 5-day coding and challenge in a moment. It's going to show you whether or not you have an aptitude. But you're going to have your learning curves. You're going to have your ups, your downs, like learning anything, okay? However, when you achieve this, the rewards are absolutely amazing. Your creativity can flare and everything else like that as well. And the opportunities that are out there for new software developers are unbelievable, wherever you're based, okay? So when you start in the program itself, you will need support, okay? And as Jane mentioned, use the support structure that's available to you. Use the career support, as she mentioned, little and often at the start, so you will be well prepared when you go out to the big jobs market itself. When you start the program, the first people you're going to talk to is student care. Okay, student care are going to help you. So I mentioned earlier on, you can do the program if you're a full-time worker, part-time worker, or unemployed, whatever your situation is. You talk to student care, they'll sit down with you and help you create a schedule. Okay, and student care are also there for any non-technical issues that you may have. For example, if you need to take a break for serious reasons or things like that, you speak to student care and they'll help you through it. Okay, so it's really important that when you do create your schedule, my advice is stick to it. Of course, we're all human, so we may want to take a break every now and then, and they'll help you reschedule things so you can catch up with what you miss as you take a week off or whatever it is. Tutoring, okay, so we have tutors available 7 days a week to help you with technical issues, okay? So you do it, there is a ticket system, you do it through the actual LMS or learning management system itself. They'll help you through wherever you're having your issues with the code. Now notice I put emphasis on the word help. A tutor isn't necessarily going to say to you, okay, here's the answer. If you've got a problem with your code, the tutor is going to help you see where you've gone wrong, and they will help you fix it. And that's an amazing way to learn because you will have fixed it yourself. Mentors. So as you work on each of those 5 projects, we have mentors available to you, and these are all career professional software developers, okay? And their role is to help you during your projects with best practice, industry best practice, what the industry wants from your web application or whatever it is. And that's amazing to have as well. Now, community support. So we have this huge community of people like you. career changers, people like you, upskillers, whatever it is, okay? And these are the people. This is like the campus community. This is like going into the library on your college campus or your university campus. You could talk to fellow students, okay? And we hold that on Slack. And there are, at the moment, about 1 million or 2 million messages posted there every year. It's where our students work together. They take part in hackathons using Slack as their way to do it. Oh, by the way, what's a hackathon? On this program, you'll also take part in at least 10 different hackathons. And then Jane spoke about career support earlier on. In terms of price, okay, so normally the price of this program is €7,795, but working together with EIMF, we're able to have a discounted fee for a limited time, and we'll be launching as a cohort in October 2022. So the price for that limited time will be €5,995. I'll get how to get in touch again in a moment. But my advice to you is get in touch with an education advisor or get in touch with one of the EIMF advisors, and they will be able to talk you through finances, etc. Okay, moving on from that, I have mentioned the 5-day coding challenge. So if you're brand new to software development, okay, Code Institute hosts what's called the 5-day coding challenge together with the EIMF. Okay, and on this, you will learn how to build your first ever web page after just 1 hour a day over 5 days. You're going to learn the basics of HTML, which we've spoken about. Remember the skeleton of every web page, CSS, which is the style of every web page, and you're going to learn a bit of JavaScript as well. By the end of those 5 days, you build your first ever web page. Okay, so how to get in touch. I'm going to make all of our heads a little bit smaller. There we go. So we're no longer blocking the view. Folks, to find out more about this program, I'd like you to visit www.eimf.eu and book in a call with an EIMF advisor. You see the orange, as you see on the screen there, towards the bottom of the page itself, okay? If you're more comfortable sending an email, it's info@eimf.eu. Okay, now folks, I'm going to wrap it up. As I mentioned, if you have any questions, etc., please get in touch. Feel free to email or to go through the contact advisory page there yourselves. Okay, I would like to thank Jane Gormley for joining us today. Jane, it's always a pleasure to do these events with you, and great to see you again. Sophie Kiriakou, and I hope I pronounced your name correct again, from
Absolutely.
Perfect, from EIMF itself.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us. And as well as that, Pablo Haralambides, I hope I've said that correctly. I've done so well so far. From MGR Human Resources. It's been great to meet you both. I work with Jane regularly, but it's amazing to meet you guys for the first time. And I'm delighted to be part of this partnership between Code Institute and the EIMF itself. To everyone who's tuned in today, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.